well, we will let you take it away from here and get going. So with no further ado, our former Dean of TU Japan, Bruce Stronach.
All right.
Well, thank you all very much for joining. And it's really an honor, pleasure for me to do this OWL hour. I've worked with the College of Education since 2008, since I became Dean of TUJ, because it's such an important part of our offerings at TUJ. So I'm really happy today to talk to you about what it is to administer overseas branch campus. And just by way of background, I've been president of a Japanese university, president of an American college, had a lot of experience as COO and provost and faculty member and dean and all that kind of thing. So my experience at TUJ in particular was very interesting. So without any further ado, let me share my screen here with y'all. And so let me just start by doing a really quick intro of what TUJ is. And you can see here, this is the spring 2020 enrollments. So 1,300 undergrads. Now, the important thing about that is, as you can see, study abroad is approximately 10%. Really important part of TUJ, and also about administering overseas campuses, is whether it's a branch campus or a study abroad campus. So Rome is study abroad. TUJ is a branch campus, which means the vast majority of our undergraduates are what we call direct admits. So they enter Temple University at Tokyo, and almost all of them complete the 4 years of their degree study or their graduate degree study in Tokyo. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. I can send anybody this PowerPoint deck who wants it, so you can look at it later. But just to give you some idea, the new management degree has only 8 students in it right now, because it used to be an EMBA. We've changed to a brand new degree, so that's just started up last fall. But the LLM program has about 77 students, as you can see. The College of Education, the Masters in Education, which is TESOL program, has about 81. PhD Applied Linguistics is 53. Then for the undergraduate program, we also have a bridge program, which is essentially getting into the undergraduate program if you are academically qualified, but not yet linguistically. And then also a separate academic English program, which is just English for those who haven't really gotten up to the level yet where they can enter the undergraduate program. Then we also have a continuing education program. Over our years since, 38 years, we've had over 6,000 graduates. We have a 3-semester system, and we have between 150, 200 study abroad students a year, about 50% from Temple and 50% from other universities. And then our undergraduate student body, about 15% of them are GI Bill. So hold on a second, I think somewhere or other. I'm sorry, hold on just a second. I got to go back to a slide that was missed. Yeah, so we were started in 1982. We were recognized as a Foreign University Japan campus in 2005. Our annual budget is about $3 are about $30 million, and we are wholly owned by Temple University. And again, these are things that I will get into a little bit later in the presentation. So in terms of TUJ's environment, it's obviously an international campus. The students are 40% American, 40% Japanese, and 20% from 55 or 60 different countries. Faculty is also very, very diverse. They're all top university graduates and almost all local hires. We get some faculty members on occasion from the main campus, but almost all of our faculty are local hires, both full-time and part-time. And all of them are evaluated through the Temple University ESFF program. And then we have speakers from around the world. We have student exchanges with many different universities, both within Japan and Asia. And I'm going to move on from this. So our history is, for the first 15 years of history, TUJ was actually owned by a local partner. None of those worked out the way the main campus wanted to. And so in 1996, the main campus decided to directly control the TUJ, the Japan campus. And they did that by creating what we would call today a LLC, which is Test Corporation in Japan, Temple Education Support Services Limited. So the dean of TUJ, and this is important, we'll talk about it a little bit later, the dean of TUJ is not just the dean of Temple's Japan campus. That person is also the president of a Japanese corporation. So when you are dean of TUJ, you have got to do two things at the same time, which is to run the university, but also run a for-profit corporation in Japan. As you can see by this slide, our how do we get there? Hold on just a second, one more time. Yeah, okay. One thing we missed here, I'm sorry, is so TUJ is, as I said, we're an accredited branch campus. And this is really important because as an overseas campus, we are almost exactly like a small school or college in the United, at Temple. And we're also like a small liberal arts university in the United States. As a branch campus, Middle States, we are accredited through Temple University, but are allowed to recruit students, admit students, and graduate students. So like a school or college on the main campus, and as a branch campus, that means all degree programs and follow main campus policies. So we have 10 undergraduate majors, 3 master's degrees, and 1 PhD degree. For all of those degree programs, we have to have the entire curriculum. So, okay, so to get back to the costs, you can see that the tuition and fees for TUJ are much less than out of state for the main campus. And there's 2 things that's important about that. The first thing is we have to keep our tuition at that level because that is the level of the most expensive private university in Japan. So that 40-40-20 split is, again, if you're running into, this is not just about TUJ. Everything I'm saying here is about any international branch campus. In order to recruit American students there, you need a critical mass of local students. In order to recruit a critical mass of local students, you have to have a critical mass of American students. And then you really need students from other countries as well, from diversity. So if we don't have Japanese students, American students are not going to want to come because they're coming to TUJ because it's Tokyo. It's not Philadelphia, it's Tokyo. That's why they're coming. They want to be in Tokyo. They want to learn about Japan. They want to be part of the Japanese scene. So they want to study with Japanese students. Japanese students are coming to us because we're an American university and they're going to get an American university degree in Tokyo. So if they're not studying with American students, they don't want to come. And then we draw students from every place, literally from Norway to Korea. We have students from the Middle East. We have students from South America. We have students from all over the world. So in order to ensure that we have that critical mass of Japanese students, we cannot be appreciably more expensive than the highest costing private university in Japan. We are about $1,000 more than the highest tuition in Japan. The other thing about that tuition is it's always good to have cross-pollination between the two campuses. And we really want more of our students to go to the main campus for a semester or 2 semesters to do a kind of study abroad in Philadelphia. The problem is they are going to be paying about $10,000 a year more in order to do that. So we have worked very hard on trying to create a situation in which we can ameliorate some of those expenses for our students who go to the main campus. So when people say, and this is not so much the case, hey, how come we're not getting any students from Tokyo? How come we're not getting any students from TUJ? There's 2 answers to that. One answer is it's Tokyo. So any student who wants to go to Temple University, they can choose to go to Philadelphia or Tokyo. Those are the only 2 portals that you can enter Temple University. And they're very different. So if you choose the Tokyo portal, you didn't choose the Philadelphia portal. That's one reason. The other reason is the cost. So here are my keys to success, and we're going to go through each one of these individually. The main campus, why has TUJ been successful? And it has been very successful. One is finances, main campus support, communications with main campus, our status in Japan, the environment in Japan, the way we recruit, academic quality, and also placement. So let's go through some of these. So the first is, if you look at what the average net surplus was for TUJ from 2005 to 2008, it was a deficit of approximately $195,000. Since 2015, our average net surplus has been a surplus of about $1,530,000. So that, one of the things that I was told when I became dean, which some people don't like, but it's very true, which is, if you're making a profit, you're okay. If you're costing Temple University money, you're not okay. So getting support for the campus is based on many things. But if you are creating a surplus, that support's going to be a lot easier. And the other thing is, it's an educational institution, make a surplus. You cannot buy those things that you need in order to support your educational quality, including the brand new campus we built with cash that we had on hand in 2019. So what is important here is for your main campus to understand that when you're going through bad times, you're going to have good times in the future. So the main campus support for you when you are going through those bad times, as we had back in 2005 to 2008. Second thing is when you're having good times, everybody wants you to spend your money on them. Why don't we hire more faculty? Why don't we, build a new building? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? We have all this money, let's use it. But the important thing to remember is to keep a reserve. You have to educate your people to understand that things are not always going to be good. There's going to be COVID. There's going to be whatever the hell comes up. There is going to be something somewhere in the future that if you don't have a reasonable reserve on hand to get you through the bad times, then they're going to be extra bad times. So when in the good times, you got to plan for bad times. And then when you're in the bad times, the worst thing to do is to hunker down and go into a death spiral. When you're in bad times, you have to believe there are going to be good times, and you got to be ready for the good times. So you got to spend on recruiting, and you have to spend on those things that are going to get you out of the bad times. So when you're in good times, don't forget there are going to be bad times. We're in bad times, spend for the good times. So for TUJ, there have been several crises. In the early years, when we were under private management, there were strong attempts on the main campus to close down TUJ, including the president at the time, who I will not mention. But this is way back in the 1990s. In 2011, in Japan, if you remember, there was a major disaster of a earthquake, nuclear meltdown. We had to close down for about a month. We were able to start up after that, but it was hard times. We went for 2 months with no cash flow. Which means about $4 million. So we were immediately down $4 million. The main campus stood up for us. And that has a lot to do with their belief in what we're doing and their ability to understand that we're going to come out of this. So going back to what I said before, communications with the main campus are what allows you to go through this. And then with COVID, knock on wood, thank God, we were in such a positive position going into COVID, that is, we had built up such a good reserve that we were affected by it immediately. And then, believe it or not, our enrollments online in particular, last spring, summer, and into this fall, were very high. So TUJ's finances really weren't affected that much by COVID. So here's yourself to the main campus. So as the dean, I was dean, and the current dean, they're a Temple University dean, med school, engineering, public health, same level. And I participate in the Council of Deans twice a month, in constant contact with the president and the provost, like other deans. Second thing is sending my staff to the main campus. This is part of what the money thing is about. You really want to be able to fund those trips of not just senior staff, but mid-level staff to the main campus, so they get to know who their counterparts are and their counterparts understand who they are. It's all about PR. It's all about selling TUJ to the main campus and getting them to understand who you are, what you do, building up the personal relationships. So when there is a problem or when something comes up, then people know who they're talking to. It's really, really important. The other thing is that as a branch campus, we administer directly DARS, VA, all of those things. Registration, we do that directly into Banner from TUJ. And for academic programs, TUJ does not have a degree. We host degree programs from CLA, College of Education, Fox, Beasley, Klein. Our degree programs that we offer are all located on the main campus. Now we have two programs, which are majors, which you can't find on the main campus. We have a Japanese language major, which doesn't exist on the main campus. And we also have a international business studies degree, which is our highest enrollment, which is not a Fox degree. It's a College of Liberal Arts degree out of the economics department. You can't get those degrees on the main campus. You have to come to TUJ to take those degree programs, majors, but their colleges are on the main campus. And then, of course, constant communication with the Education Abroad Office for study abroad, International Affairs Office as an international campus. And we work with Temple University on a number of projects. The best example is overseas recruiting and domestic recruiting. We work with Temple University. Keep putting in I had, I'm retired, okay, I'm emeritus. But I had 8 recruiters recruiting from around the world directly for TUJ. But those people and my Associate Dean for Enrollment Management also work closely with Sean and Enrollment Management on the main campus, both on overseas and domestic recruiting. So a good example is that when Temple University a few years ago decided that they really needed to expand their recruiting to be national recruiting, they found out that we were also already recruiting. TUJ was recruiting directly on the West Coast and in California. So we worked with them on Temple University recruiting in those areas. And then the final thing is that it's not just trips back and forth, main campus people coming to TUJ, TUJ people coming to the main campus. It's also all of those transactions that you don't think about that occur every single day. All of the emails from every level of staff, all of those transactions are so important in maintaining those strong ties. So another thing that you have to be concerned about, and which we're certainly concerned about, is the status of incorporation. From 1982 to 2005, TUJ was not incorporated in Japan in any way as an educational institution. In 2005, we attained the status of Foreign University Japan campus, which allowed us to sponsor foreign visas just like a Japanese university. And that really is one of the major elements of developing TUJ as the kind of international global university and branch campus that it is. So, however, TUJ remains essentially a for-profit company. And the problem with that is that we have to pay corporate tax and our students have to pay consumption tax. So we continue to work with the Japanese government in order to relieve ourselves of that tax burden. But what has been important for us also in that Foreign University of Japan campus status is since that time, we have been able to brand ourselves as, yes, we are a university. However, we are not a Japanese university. There's a separate type of incorporation, which is called gakuhojin in Japanese, which means being incorporated as a Japanese university. But if we were to do that, Temple University would no longer have the direct control over TUJ that they have now. It would be under the education ministry next. So there has been over many years much discussion about whether TUJ should become a Japanese university, should become incorporated as a Japanese university. And the feeling is always that, no, it is better the way we are right now, even though there are downsides, because it gives Temple University direct control over the Japan campus. And then the last point here is, as I said, simultaneously operating a for-profit corporation and an American university campus. That is not always an easy thing. There are elements of being an American university which don't match well with the legal obligations of being a Japanese for-profit company. So you have to find a way to make workarounds on that. So the easiest example of that is Japanese companies have a registered retirement age, but American, obviously, as a subsidiary of an American entity, we are under the American Equal Opportunity Act, which means that we can't have a retirement age. So under Japanese law, we have to have a retirement age. Under American law, we can't have a retirement age. And so our retirement age is 68. And so the way that we do that, and it's worked out so far, is to apply it to all non-American employees. And that creates a little problem sometimes, but you have to find these workarounds in order to make it work. And it was, I think, the most fascinating part of the job. So the other thing, another thing is the higher education environment in Japan. Japanese universities need to globalize and reform. They recognize that. They have come to understand TUJ is a institution of high educational quality. And so TUJ actually plays a very important role as a change agent in Japanese higher education, and that is recognized. It's recognized by prospective students and parents. It's recognized by other universities. And so therefore is a very important part of our positive image in Japan. TUJ partners with a lot of Japanese university, and especially with Showa Women's University. It is on their campus that we built our brand new campus. So we work very closely with Showa Women's University, even though both are obviously separate universities, but having our campus on their campus is really beneficial for both institutions. And it would have never happened if we did not have a good image in the higher education system and also had good relations with Japanese universities. As the dean of a campus, the most important thing is recruiting. If you don't have students, you don't have money. You don't have money, you can't do anything. So recruiting, marketing, and image, no matter how high the academic quality of your institution, no matter how good it is, it means bupkis unless you have somebody out there telling prospective students and parents how good you are and what you can do, and you can back that up. So I'm really proud of our recruiting team. They do a tremendous job. And we have huge open campuses. And we have been able, we have gotten into a space which I call the virtuous cycle, where we have increased our applications to the point where we can become very, very discriminating and constantly increasing the applications to enrollments. So I capped enrollment because we really, because of our facilities, could not get much larger than 1,300 students. And so, some people are saying, well, why are we putting so much money into recruitment if you're capping enrollments? And the answer to that is this virtuous cycle. The more applications you have, the better the quality of the students you're going to get. The better the quality of students you're going to get, the higher the academic quality, the higher the academic quality, the more applications you're going to get. And luckily, we entered that really sweet upward spiral a couple of years ago. Now, the other thing about academic quality, maintaining academic quality is, of course, we follow all main campus academic policies, including not just academic policies, but also what one can call student support policies like Title IX. We have a deputy Title IX director who reports to the Title IX director on the main campus. All of our curriculum is overseen by the school and college committees on curriculum. We have a DRS policy, for example, from the main campus. And then for faculty, as I said, we directly hire almost all of our faculty, but we ensure that the evaluation of those faculty and the the requirements of those faculty, both for hiring, tenure, and promotion, are at least as strict as on the main campus. And this is just one example, but another point I want to make is nothing sells like demonstrable outcomes. And the outcome that sells the most is, if I go there, can I get a job? Well, for at least the past 8 years, our annual placement rate has been 97%. For Japanese, it's 100%. For non-Japanese, about 95%. And this is both due to the way in which we educate our students. We have a huge number of internships, by the way, for credit internships. But it's also due to the fact that Japanese companies and multinationals in Japan have come to realize over the last 7 years or so that it is very important for them to hire foreigners who have a knowledge of Japan and Japanese who have a knowledge of foreigners. And those two groups are our graduates. So that has, we have just been, knock on wood, in a just real sweet spot for the last 5 to 7 years. And then finally, College of Education, the pride of TUJ. And I mean this sincerely, that, when TUJ started in 1982, the only graduate program was the TESOL program. And then in 1988 started the EDD program, which then, like on the main campus, changed to a PhD in applied linguistics in 2015. To date, we've had about 1,600 TESOL grads and about 180 doctoral grads. And I have to tell you that the College of Education program, particularly the master's program, is the program in Japan. That throughout Japan and in higher education and in other places, many of our graduates are in leadership positions now throughout Japan. So, we are very well known and respected. And a little side note, the Showa Women's University president was actually the 4th EDD graduate from TUJ. That's just a coincidence. It's not the reason we got together. The reason we got together is because the chancellor and I had known each other for many years and decided to collaborate. But it's just an indication of how important the College of Education graduates are. So that's it. I'm running out of breath. We only, I don't mind going over 6 o'clock if people have questions, but let me now open up to any questions you may have.
Sure, I have a question, Bruce.
Sure.
Earlier in your presentation, you talked about partnerships with Japan, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Can you elaborate a little bit about what those partnerships are? And if you also offer any dual degrees with other institutions?
Yeah. So the first thing is that with Japanese universities, the first full partnership we had for a credit exchange program, student exchange, credit exchange program, was with Musashi University back in 2010. It was about 2 years. Part of the story is that I was president of a Japanese university when I became dean at TUJ. I'm the only foreigner to have been president of a public university in Japan. And the great thing is I did such a bad job that they'll never hire another foreigner again. So I'll always be able to call myself the only foreign president of a public university. But kidding aside, so I had very deep connections to the higher education system. Actually, when I became dean at TUJ, I was the vice chairman of the National University Accreditation Association for Japan. So I made it one of my policies to start partnering with Japanese universities as a means of getting that legitimacy in the higher education system, to be seen as not just a legitimate institution, but one that really wanted, as a foreign institution, to work with Japanese institutions. So that's what's important about the Japanese universities. And, these exchange programs were never equal, and we never thought they would be. Many more Japanese students come to TUJ than TUJ students go to Japanese universities because not many of our foreign students can speak that level of Japanese, but it's great PR to get those students on our campus. One of the stories I love to tell is at Showa Women's University, basically the chief academic officer, one of her students came to TUJ for a semester on exchange. And after she was at TUJ for a semester, this student was talking with her professor, the chief academic officer at Showa Women's University, and what she said was, "Wow, I'm so glad there. Now I know what it's like to go to a real university." And she obviously didn't understand what she was saying, but that's what the Japanese university connection is all about. Our students can also study abroad at any Temple University study abroad location, whether it's Spain or Rome or whatever, and some of our students do. But we also think it's important to have our own connections. So with Hong Kong Baptist University, for example, with National Taipei University in Taiwan, these are programs that give our students some sort of extra special benefits, and the same thing for their programs.
Thank you. I don't want to take everybody's time, but I have just one more quick question.
Go for it.
Since this is technically, as you said, not a Japanese university, but so when we see the trends in enrollment that happen in nationally in the US, and when we had a dip a few years ago, and of course we know that doctoral education also has been a little bit challenging, particularly in the last couple of years. Do you also experience that over there, or because it's in a different system and country, it's not as affected as we see it here?
Yeah, no, our market is totally different. Actually, our market is totally different, both from the US and Japan. Japan nationally has a much, much, much worse depopulation problem than does the United States. The overall population growth rate in Japan is about 1.3. So that means for every 2 people, they're only producing 1.3. And particularly with the college age group, there's a huge depopulation problem, which is really affecting Japanese universities. So because we're an American university in Japan and in Tokyo, we don't feel that because we're not on the same playing field. We are so unique that our attraction is very different than it is for Japanese universities, obviously. And then we're also recruiting from around the world, which Japanese universities are not doing, quite frankly, which is another thing I'm not even going to go into. I've got another hat, which is advising Japanese universities on globalization problems. But in Japan, because we're an American university and we recruit from around the world, not just in Japan, then that's a real positive. And then the other way around, we also recruit directly from the United States. Honestly speaking, I recruit in competition with the main campus. I have recruiters in the US who are recruiting for the Japan campus directly. But we do not see the same types of recruitment problems that the main campus does because we're recruiting for Tokyo. So this is we're a situation where if you're a Japanese person and you want to come to TUJ, it's tough. You're going to have to, speak English. You're going to be in a higher education institution, which is much more difficult than Japanese universities. And if you're an American who wants to come to TUJ, it's tough. You're going to have to, get there. You have to leave home. You're 8,000 miles away. So the people who apply to TUJ, they want to be there. This is not just, I'm going to apply to 15 schools next year. I'll put TUJ down on the list. No, that's not the way it goes. People who apply to us really want to come here. So our marketing is and our enrollment management environment is completely different than anybody in Japan or the US.
Thank you.
So Bruce, there was a question in the chat that came through that was asking about the test corporation and saying, are the traditional methods of nonprofit educational institutions not permitted in Japan, or is it a requirement to be a for-profit as an educational institution?
No. Japan went through, how to say, in the early 2000s, that's when the Japanese government, the higher education system, began to truly understand the need for fundamental reform. Now, the question to which it has actually reformed is very debatable, but one of the things which they were going to attempt is to create accredited for-profit institutions. They have done a few of those, but it has not worked out very well. Again, for reasons which I really don't have time to explain, for-profit education in Japan is not as culturally acceptable as it is in the United States. So that's why the place that we have gotten, if you will, is people recognizing that the box we're in is a for-profit corporation in Japan, an LTD, if you will, in Japan. But what's inside the box is a university, so that for all intents and purposes, we are a university. But if we were known as a for-profit university, no, it would be very different, quite frankly. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
I'm guessing that from that statement, it means there is a nonprofit or a state-run level of education within Japan on the higher education spectrum.
Hold on just a second. Let me get out of this and sorry. So could you repeat that? I'm sorry, one more time.
So I was just saying, so I guess from what you're saying, there is a nonprofit or a state-owned operated education, higher education system. It's just, they've been trying to move towards.
There are 800, where am I going here? Ooh, I just did something. Okay, stop share, that's what I want. There we go, okay, all right. So there are 800 universities in Japan, roughly 800 universities in Japan. The vast majority of them are private nonprofit, but there are also two types of public national universities, which of course we don't have in the US, that are associated with the Ministry of Education, Sports, Science, and Technology and Culture. And then also public universities, which are directly owned by cities or prefectures. And that's what I was president of. Yokohama City University is a public university owned by the city of Yokohama. So, yeah.
Sounds almost like the California system, like SCUBA would be the UC system and then Yokohama would be the state system or.
Right, exactly. So yeah, SCUBA would be US, UCSD, and then Yokohama City University would be, San Diego State.
Bruce, I was surprised by the tuition costs for TUJ. And you said that we're trying to keep that in competitive with the private schools in Japan. Why are the private schools in Japan so much more affordable, have such lower tuition than private colleges in the United States?
Because when you are, and this is one of the considerations when we talk about whether or not TUJ should become incorporated as a Japanese university. When you incorporate as a Japanese university, during that process of incorporation, you have to, there's just, it takes basically 2 years to put together all the data to give to the ministry. But then the final decision is actually made by an independent committee. But when you're putting that data together for the ministry, you have to declare how many students you are going to have in each department. So, you say, okay, the College of Liberal Arts, we're going to have 2,000 students per year, which means that after 4 years of operation, we're going to have 8,000 students. So that's what's called in Japanese the student quota. So you register that quota with the ministry, and then based upon your registered quota, the ministry actually allocates to private universities only, a stipend. And that stipend can be somewhere between 10 and 20% of total operating expenses. And it is intended to ensure that you are going to be able to maintain enough faculty to support the number of students. So there's a direct relationship to the number of faculty you have to have and your student quota, and that is supported by a subsidy from the ministry. So that's the main reason.
And
I should also say that there's another reason, which is in Japan, administrative costs are less in large part because personnel costs are less. I'm not going to go any further to say, but I will tell you that I know from my vast experience in Japan that as Dean of TUJ, I was the highest paid college president in Japan, or university president in Japan, no doubt. And my salary compared to an American university president was very small. So just, I don't know if any of you know what the Gini index is, but the Gini index for Japan is very positive.
so that subsidy goes from the Japanese government to the private schools.
Yes.
Students also qualify for financial aid like they do in the United States?
Yes. Yeah. And like American universities, there's institutional aid, but also the national government has aid. The thing that's really different is, when I tell people at private universities in Japan that right now the average private university tuition discount in the US is 50%, I get out the smelling salts and pick them up off the floor. I think if basically, like, for example, at TUJ, our discount rate is like 13%, and that's high for a Japanese public university. For a Japanese private university.
All right, any other questions for Bruce?
I do see one in the chat. It says, is there something unique about Temple that makes this relationship work better than a ex-university Japan campus with another institution? What does Temple do uniquely right to support its international campuses?
I think that goes back to the success slide that I had. So there are several things. I mean, one thing is, I think made a final decision and commitment to the Tokyo campus in 1996 when it created this wholly owned subsidiary in Tokyo and committed to direct ownership of the Japan campus. That was the real crossing of the Rubicon, if you will. And that has been supported since that time by all of these direct connections between administration and faculty in Japan and administration and faculty on the main campus. But obviously finances play a very big role in that. And that over the years, and particularly, over the last 9 years or so, having that strong financial surplus certainly doesn't help. Doesn't hurt. But the main thing, I think, is the commitment of the main campus to the Japan campus, and in particularly since 1996, when this direct subsidiary, if you will, was created.
All right. Any others?
Oh, wait a minute. You know what I forgot? I forgot the most important thing of all.
You didn't show the Hoover slide.
Yeah. There you go. This is when we opened our new campus in 2019, when we had the opening campus ceremony. We flew Hooter. And little did I know, you don't get the suit, you got to get the guy in the suit. So we flew the guy in the Hooter suit over. We had he was just wonderful, loved being there, all this kind of stuff. And the woman was my senior associate dean, also the associate dean for enrollment management, Chie Kato. So she was really my, I owe a lot of my success at TUJ and TUJ's success to Chie. We had a really, really great working relationship. So this is us with Hooter on the at the TUJ campus opening.
Great photo. Thanks for sharing.
Sure. Any other questions?
Well, Bruce, thank you. This has been very informative. It's fun to hear all the different angles that you need to take into consideration when you're looking at that international side. And glad to hear that Temple has been a good partner and supporting member of that to be a leader within the higher ed field in Japan as well.
Well, and anyone, like you said, if you want the PowerPoint deck, just go ahead and shoot me an email. I still have because I'm Dean Emeritus, I have Temple email. Or if you have any follow-up questions or any questions that you have on administering overseas campuses, please don't hesitate to send me an email. Be happy to do it. Love the College of Education. Had a great relationship with them over the years. And so anything I can do to help, let me know.
We certainly will. We appreciate it. And everybody, in the meantime, stay safe and warm.
Okay, take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye now.
Have a good evening.